A bit of background information. I am a university student in the southwest of England. I currently live in a house share with 3 other girls, only 2 of whom are here at the moment, in somewhat a dodgy area. My bedroom is the only one on the ground floor, with a back door that leads onto a small and discreet patio in the garden. It's a semi-detached house, so there's houses on either sides, and there's a lane behind the gardens with no street lighting. Recently we've been having bad weather in the area, so the dividing fence on one of the sides has fallen down, as well as some of the fencing to the lane belonging to the other houses. The first time it happened was at the end of December. My housemates were still at their parents' for the holidays, but I'd come back early to revise for an exam that I had in January, so I was there alone. I always kept the back door in my bedroom locked, and I have blinds that cover the full length of the door and the window, with a gap probably around 3 inches in the middle. I was sitting on my bed with my laptop, and since I had the lights on, I could clearly see outside, as it was dark. However, I kept thinking I could see something in my peripheral vision through the gap in the blinds. I wouldn't have been able to see anything outside unless it was close to my window. I looked up a few times and thought that I saw something pale move away in the lower right hand corner of the window in the door, which would have been directly by the gap. I figured I was probably just being paranoid and ignored it. Later on, I went upstairs and noticed through the hallway window that the people we share a lack of fence with were having people over. My bedroom is on the opposite side of the house, so my patio window wouldn't have been visible to them unless they had come into the garden and walked over. Around 2 a.m. I heard what sounded like all their guests leaving and figured that maybe someone had drunkenly wandered over earlier on. At this point I had all of my lights off and was sat in my bed with my laptop, and I heard what sounded like someone shuffling around outside. I immediately closed my laptop, so my room was completely dark and no one would be able to see anything from outside. I crawled across the floor to the window and peeked through from the very edge of the blinds on the right. There was a man crouched outside my door, trying to look through into my bedroom. I realized later that I should have made it obvious I knew he was out there by yelling something at him, but at the time I was frozen solid in fear. After a couple of minutes, he realized that he couldn't see anything with the lights off. He had the nerve to tut, and then he crept away. I debated calling the police, but decided I didn't really have any information for them, so it would be a waste of their time. Needless to say, I didn't get much sleep that night, and I have no idea how long he had been watching me. I spoke to the landlord afterwards, and he's had a concrete wall put up between the garden and the alley. But the fence on the other side with the gaps in belongs to the neighbours, whose landlord is in America and apparently is impossible to get hold of. So currently there's still nothing securing our garden from the next doors and the lane. 2 nights ago, my boyfriend and I were in my room sitting on my bed watching Netflix. Since the first time it had happened, I've been massively paranoid and had nightmares about it happening again. So at first I thought I might be imagining it. However, this time I distinctly saw the upper right part of a face peering through the gap at us. He was wearing dark framed glasses. I immediately froze and whispered to my boyfriend that I could see someone, and I definitely wasn't imagining it. And don't fucking move until we figure out how to react. He insisted that we leave the room, and I went upstairs to the landing window and saw someone walking down the lane, but no one else in sight. Whether or not that was the same person, I am not sure. I was quite upset that it had been happening again, but thought the likeliness of him coming back twice in one night would be rare, and decided to talk to my landlord in the morning. We managed to hang a coat up over the gap in the blinds, so you couldn't see through the window at all, even with the lights on. My boyfriend had work in the morning, so he left around 11 p.m. Literally within 5 minutes of him leaving, I stood in my room facing away from the back door and decided whether to watch Netflix or go to bed. I heard some faint scruffling outside and 2 clicks, but tried to convince myself that it was all in my head. It occurred to me a few minutes later that the clicking sound was the noise of the door handle when somebody tries to open it when it's locked. As this was dawning on me and I was about to react, whoever was out there tried to pull the window open. It's important to note that my window is tiny, even I couldn't fit through it, and it's at the top, so around 5 feet from the floor. It doesn't close all the way as the latch is broken, and I have a dream catcher with wind chimes hanging off it in the inside handle. So as they pull it open, the wind chimes started rattling against the window. I was terrified at this point. I'm very small and have no idea how to defend myself. And someone was actually attempting to enter my house through my bedroom. I have no idea how I summoned the courage to do it, but I whipped the blinds open and made a big deal out of slamming the windows shut, then peered outside. I couldn't see anyone, so they must have run off. Straight away I called my boyfriend, who had just gotten home, who then come back and insisted I stay at his for the night. When I spoke to my landlord the next morning, he said he was going to get motion sensor intruder lights installed, but couldn't fix the fence as it was the neighbour's landlord's property. I was still pretty freaked out, but I thought that the wind chimes rattling must have made it clear that trying to get in would not go unnoticed, and the gaps had been covered so there wouldn't be any point of him returning again. Last night we made a thick covering of the blinds with a bunch of jackets and coats, so there was absolutely no way anybody could see in. Feeling safer, we smoked a joint each, and my boyfriend dozed off for a while. Probably around midnight or a bit later, I got up and turned the lights off and put the light on my phone to make my way back to the bed. Feeling really paranoid still, I decided just to peek through the blinds quickly to confirm that there was nobody there. The light on my phone made it slightly more difficult for me to see, but I saw someone wearing a hoodie hunched outside. My hands were shaking and the side of the blind balancing on a coat in the middle slipped a little and rattled. I instantly let go and turned the light off of my phone, and a few moments later I saw a weak light coming from the other side turn off. I must have sat there on the floor not moving and listened intently for about 10 minutes before I dared crawl back into bed. I woke my boyfriend but didn't explain what had happened properly, so he assured me that I couldn't have seen anything and was probably just really baked. I spent most of the night staring at the blinds. I would have thought that the wind chimes would have put anybody off, but for them to come back the next night has really made me feel uncertain about what to do. I was thinking tonight I might try and set something up to see if anybody comes back, like tying some string a few inches from the ground across the entrance of the patio, as I'd be able to hear if anybody tripped over it. I also thought I might stay somewhere else and set my laptop webcam up to record the window all night with the screen turned off. I still haven't called the police yet, as I still don't have much information and feel like I would be wasting their time. I don't know what to do in order to feel safe in my own home anymore. But creepy, peeping Tom guy that stares through my window, I hope we never meet again. When I was a kid, around 8 years old, I took karate lessons at my local mini mall. Jesus, just recalling the events of this story fills me with dread as to what could have happened. So, yeah, I remember my lessons were twice a week, an hour long, and my mum would drop me off and pick me up when it was over. Most parents would sit in the lobby and wait for their kids' lessons to be over. But my mum, she would always go shopping or something like that to kill time instead. There was this guy in the lobby almost every time I had a lesson. He looked older, probably in his 50s, dark hair, long beard and a moustache. I always assumed he was another one of the kids' parents, but I never saw him drop someone off or pick them up. Something was very strange about this, but my 8-year-old brain didn't piece it together that it was weird that some guy would just hang around and watch kids in the lobby of the karate center. So one day I graduated up to a green belt or a yellow belt or something, it doesn't really matter. And my mum, she dropped me off at the same time that she always did. However, she didn't realise that I was in a different group of lessons now, and I wasn't going to be able to participate in the class. So instead, I decided to go look for her in the mini mall. The creepy guy started to follow me. He came right up behind me and tapped me on the shoulder, told me that my mum had told him to give me a ride because my sister was in hospital. He described what my mum looked like and what my sister looked like, and he also said that we should get into his van so we could take a trip to see my parents. I remember I started to cry and follow him because I really believed him when he said that my sister was in hospital. I asked him what had happened and he told me they were in a car accident. I asked him who he was and I remember he just said he was a friend with my mum. I remember this didn't sit right with me because my mum never talked about him when she dropped me off, and I didn't recall them ever saying one word to each other. His van was parked a couple of stories down from the karate center by the sidewalk. I remember being something like 20 feet from the van when I looked behind me and saw my mum shopping through one of the windows in the JC Penney. At this point, the guy was holding my hand and leading me to his van. But when I stopped and saw my mum, he started to pull me and say we had to hurry up. I remember pointing at my mum and saying to him, "My mum's right there." He gave another tug at me and I resisted and started to scream. He let go of me instantly, got back into his van and sped off in a hurry. In that moment, I realized I was almost kidnapped. I remembered all the stranger danger warnings we were given in school, but I stupidly thought that because this guy could describe my mum and sister, that he must know them instead. He must have been watching me and my family for weeks before he decided to make his move. I remember just running into the store, tears streaming down my face, and just giving my mum a huge hug. I tried to tell her what had happened, but she just yelled at me and gave me a slight smack around the head for missing my karate lesson. She took me back to the karate center, and my sensei explained to her that the lessons had changed now and they would be at different times. He probably explained this to my mum before, but as you could tell by reading this, I didn't have the most responsible parents. I tried to tell my mum about the guy who said that he was her friend, but she ignored me. She said something like he must have thought I was some other kid. God, my mum is such an idiot, but I was too young to linger on it or do anything about it. So my memory just festered in me for years. And every year that went by, I became a little wiser and a little bit more terrified about what could have happened to me if I got into that band.